Hello and welcome to You Should Be Reading. Today on You Should Be Reading, you should be reading The Cat's Maw. The Cat's Maw is a 2014 young adult novel by Brooke Burgess concerning the tale of a young boy named Billy Brams living in a small little suburb with his adoptive parents who don't treat him that great, particularly the mother. And he likes cats quite a lot. Across the road from him there is an old house filled with cats that live with an old woman who treats him quite nicely. And then one summer, unfortunately, he gets into an accident. And then a cat decides to make itself his pet. And then things start to become really quite strange. That's about as much as I can delve into it without going too deep into spoiler territory, because, spoilers are a thing you do try to avoid in a review. Now, as I already mentioned, the book is written by Brooke Burgess, and for me, I know him very well because he created this Broken Saints, which I've mentioned on this channel before, but which, if you haven't already heard me ramble on about it in 2013, my god, that's nearly 2 years ago now. Where the fuck did the time go? Sorry. Yes, Broken Saints. I've mentioned before that it was like a life-changing experience in terms of me viewing some sort of media. And Broken Saints was that sort of thing, because I watched it in 2005/6, and that was when I was just watching the original Flash web comic series version, before I then bought the DVD with the upgraded enhanced visuals and animation and voices and all that stuff. Yes, words, Jack, they are a thing. So yes, Brooke Burgess created Broken Saints, and I love Broken Saints because, again, the life-changing experience thing, as I already said. And so he's written this book, The Cat's Maw, and it is very good. That is an understatement, but we'll just put it like that to start off with. It's very good. And yet, maybe, just maybe, I have a little bit of a bias towards the stuff that Brooke Burgess creates, because what he does tends to be pretty good, and I tend to get on board with it really easily because I just do. And so maybe I have a bit of a bias towards maybe thinking that The Cat's Maw is good. But I honestly do think, because he gave me a review copy to read on my iPad for free in order to do this review type thing, thanks Brooke, in order to give an honest review. And honestly, I think that despite my bias of loving his work and knowing Brooke personally as such, in terms of like Facebook friendage and all that kind of stuff, I still do think that, even so, in spite of the bias stuff, I still think that the book is excellent for anyone. I think anyone can pick it up and find it to be extraordinarily awesome. Because, like, looking at the GOODREADS reviews, just for one thing, and Amazon reviews and any reviews of it that you read, the vast majority of them are glowing, like a pregnant woman in the midst of her 9-month term. That metaphor went nowhere. Really, it just glows, like Mrs. Fox in Fantastic Mr. Fox. There, that's a reference that makes some sort of sense. Yes. So, the reviews, they're all good. Pretty much, as far as I can tell, they've all been 4 and 5 star reviews. And that's not something you can shake a stick at, or whatever the saying is. Whatever. And the book is just really that good. It really is. No joke, no word of exaggeration. It is so good for anyone to read. Children, if they're really young, might find it a bit scary, but maybe in sort of like the best ways of the children's films of long ago, in like the 80s or something, when children films could be scary, like, Return to Oz. I think, to me, I like it better than The Wizard of Oz, because Return to Oz is fucking terrifying for not just kids, but for anyone. But as a kid, it's fucking scarring, I mean, have you seen Return to Oz? You got the skater guys that are all on four. Oh, fucking words, Jack. Use them. They're on all fours with their roller skating hands and feet, and they're scary. You've got the claymation faces all twisted and distorted, and they're talking, and the film is scary, man. And maybe that's why it was a flop at the time. But whatever. The point is that the book Cat's Maw, it is probably scary for readers who are young, really young, but maybe in a good way. There is some mild language of the strong variety, you know, like shit, that's about the strongest it goes. But, you know, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think all kids know all the swear words by around the age of 10 or whatever, which is the age of the character in the book, if I remember correctly, which I think I do. And, you know, so I think it's good for children, and it's good for young adults, young teenagers, and adults can enjoy it too. It's good all around. And one of the best things about it is that the book has a kind of a throwback feel to those like 80s movies like Monster Squad and Gremlins and what else? Neverending Story, and you know, all them types of 80s movies where the kid or kids discovers some sort of magical, fantastical thing in their little suburban neighbourhood, and the adults can not know about it because they're adults and they're stupid and stuff, and only the kids can do something with it or about it, and things can get a bit scary and a bit threatening, and only the kids can help put a stop to it. You know, them kinds of movies from The Goonies, that's another one. So them types of movies from way back when, back in the 80s when they were done really, really well. And it's got that same kind of vibe to it. Apart from a few references to technology of stuff that's around today, in the book, it could be set in the 80s very easily if you just removed all the references to technological things, you know? And there's especially that kind of 80s vibe because there is an 80s type villain douchebag who's an antagonist towards Billy in the story. And when I was reading the book, it made me think, you know, this little fucker, if I remember his name correctly, the character's name is Tommy, he is such a little twerp that if this was an 80s movie, he would so be played by Billy Zabka. In fact, if The Cat's Maw ever gets made into a movie, I sincerely am putting forward the notion that Billy Zabka should play this little twerping bastard's dad, because the dad is almost as bad as well. He's got, even the description sounds very Billy Zabka-esque. So, movie executives, should you ever make The Cat's Maw into a movie, which you should, it might be difficult and maybe you'd think that it wouldn't be very profitable because you're studios and you're stupid, but if you do the casting, just remember, Billy Zabka, he would make a great dad for the little villain antagonist wanker. So, yes, there is that. And also, the whole book is very pro-cats. You would kind of guess as such because it's called The Cat's Maw, but, you know, in a positive way. It's kind of, I say it's like pro-cats, but it's kind of in the same way as like in that episode of The Simpsons where Marge finds that documentary by Flymo or some sort of lawnmower company, and she says, this documentary is particularly pro-lawnmower. And it's like, yes, Marge, what else would you think it would be? It's kind of built into, it's inherent in the design of the thing. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, as someone who used to own a cat before she sadly died last year, it's having a story that's devoted entirely to cats without dissing dogs. I mean, there is a sort of, in the book there are lots of interplays between people debating whether dogs or cats are better. And while the book is like mainly on the side of cat, because again it's called The Cat's Maw, you know, it doesn't diss dogs as such, because certain people like dogs, gravitate towards dogs, and they have their, you know, thing with dogs, and other people are more cat people, not like cat people like the films, either one of them, you know what I mean. The point is that it's not dissing dogs, it's just the story is mainly concerned with cats. And it also brings up in the story, there's this little thing about how lots of stories usually focus on dogs being like man's best friend, and cats are usually seen as the villainous creatures. I mean, do you remember Stuart Little? Cat, villain. You remember Cats and Dogs with Jeff fucking Goldblum? That was cats and dogs. The cats were the villains, the dogs were the good guys, you know. So in this, it's nice to have the cats be the good guys for once in some sort of story. And also, when you consider that the story is a fantasy sort of thing, a young adult story, and Brooke Burgess has mentioned that he has lots of influences, including C.S. Lewis and other people, in terms of who influences him in his fantasy writing. At first, when I was reading it, I was like, I'm not sure. I imagine at some point there's going to be like a big talking cat, because it's a fantasy and there are cats, so at some point a cat is probably going to be talking. And I thought to myself, is this going to be too far for me to be able to believe? And then I remembered, oh no wait, Lion, the Witch and Wardrobe, well, the whole Narnia Chronicles, Aslan, so it's fine. So don't worry about that. And another one of the great things about the book is that you can read it in such a way, even in spite of the fact that you know that it's like the first part of a trilogy, which it is, and that it's a young adult fantasy book. In spite of that, in spite of knowing all that going into the reading of it, you can still read the book viewing it as a sort of like depiction of a young boy's slide into near insanity, like his imagination going, taking over him, his dull and miserable life making his imagination take over and consuming him. And you can view it as that, and even right till the very end you could still view it in that sort of way, where you could imagine that the whole thing is taking place in just his mind, and maybe the whole fantasy element isn't really happening outside of his perception of the world. However, just to clarify, or maybe I shouldn't clarify, maybe I should just leave it to you to determine if you read the book, because I'm not doing spoilers in this review. And yeah, the point of this whole thing is that the book is fantastic. The prose is exquisite, and it's so poetically written and so well written and described, and there are nightmare sequences in it that rival anything that David Lynch has ever done on screen. It's just in book form this time, and that's where the scariness for little kids might be too much for them, who knows, but it is quite scary, the nightmare things. They go really freaky, I tell you. And through all of that, the book is just phenomenal. It deserves to have a lot more recognition in the publishing world, in the book world. And I mentioned in my GOODREADS review, I believe, I'm sure I did, I must have said it in there, because otherwise where am I thinking this from? But yeah, I mentioned in that I think that The Cat's Maw is so good that it has the potential to be so great that it even has the potential to rival Harry Potter. No exaggeration, it could be as big a thing as that if it had bigger, publishing deals or whatever. It had bigger reach, more people read it, and I think it could be seen as something as big as that, or any other children's young adult type series that exist in the world. And no word of lie, no word of exaggeration, it is that good. It is written as well as anything that J.K. Rowling has ever written in that series, or anything else that she's done in her name or someone else's, So, yeah, that is my review. That's my recommendation, that the book is really, really good, basically. And that you should read it in whatever way that you can, whether it be ebook or by buying it online in paperback. And, the second installment is coming out in 2015, and yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. So, get on that, Brooke, as soon as you possibly can. Yes. So, yeah, there we are. You should be reading The Cat's Maw. And thus concludes my first video of 2015. And I hope it was alright. These videos tend to be just sort of generally, that general kind of emotion to them. So, whatever. The point is, this video is now done, first video of 2015, and I look forward to doing a lot more in the coming year. A lot more than I did last year, because last year I didn't do that many at all. So I'm looking to remedy that, if possible, and all that good stuff. So yes, thank you for watching, and bye.